Chapter 5:14. If Yun Jian had only said that she was going to teach them the killer move, perhaps no one would have believed her. Killing move, that was a move that assassins often used. Just like what Yun Jian had said, it was a one-hit kill. The biggest difference between a killer's move and an ordinary move was that the killer move was a one-hit kill. It was simple and brutal and could kill a person in the shortest amount of time. That was the way. However, everyone present also understood that an average person would not know how to learn a killer's move. Even if they did, the military would never imitate it. Although a killer was fast and agile when it came to killing, to become a qualified killer or special agent, one had to survive on the brink of death. The winner was king. In the world of killers and special agents, death was a constant presence. Yun Jian wanted to train Chuning and the other 5. She would not ask them to kill each other like how she trained killers to pick the strongest one. That was something she had experienced in the organization when she was a special agent, slaying God, in her previous life. However, there were ways to improve Chuning and the other 5 skills in a short period of time. What Yun Jian said just now, however, shocked everyone present. This included Xiao Weiming and the rest who were standing far away, as well as Gu Junjian who was standing next to Yun Jian and the other 5. Killer move? A killer's move? Yun Jian, you know a killer move? Chu Xiangnan was completely stunned. He stared blankly at Yun Jian and could not help but ask. Even Gu Junjian pricked up his ears and listened attentively. Gu Junjian even recalled that he had initially recruited Yun Jian to be a candidate for the Advanced Special Forces because Yun Jian had exposed herself and killed Wolf Blade, who was ranked 10th on the international killer chart. What did that mean? The 20 people in the top 10 of the assassin and secret agent rankings were all global 3S wanted criminals. However, to capture one of these 20 people, how much force would be needed and how many special forces elites would be sacrificed to subdue them? Yun Jian, on the other hand, had killed Wolf Blade, who was ranked 10th on the killer chart, all by herself. Xiao Weiming, Yu Fengqing and the rest who were standing far away were also dumbfounded. Yun Jian knew a killer move. And just now, when Chu Xiangnan attacked her, wasn't the strength she displayed the usual move of an assassin? I once met an old man. He taught me all these. Yun Jian blinked. This was not the first time she had lied. But when she was lying, her eyes didn't twitch and her heart didn't tremble, so no one realized that she was lying. In fact, Yun Jian's words were mixed with some truth. Back then, there was indeed an old man who taught her hypnotism. This old man was also very important to Yun Jian. Chapter 5:27. It's true that battling dragons can't compare to you guys. Chief Yuan agreed with Chuning. He was in high spirits and admired a talent like Yun Jian, so when Chuning, who was in the same team as Yun Jian, spoke up, he agreed with her out of habit. Chief Yuan was a man of his words. He was a man of his word and was a man of his word. He was also carefree and did not hold back at all. Therefore, he was not afraid of offending AI Guishuan or battling dragons when he directly pointed out that battling dragons could not compare to Yun Jian's team of 7 in front of AI Guishuan and the rest of battling dragons. After all, Chief Yuan was AI Guishuan and the rest superior. How could Yu Luo take it when her superior pointed out that battling dragons could not compare to Yun Jian's team? Although Yu Luo wasn't the captain of battling dragons, she was their leader. Yun Jian was the one who led Team Monarch earlier. One could say that Yu Luo was Yun Jian's rival. To say that battling dragons could not compare to Yun Jian's Team Monarch was indirectly saying that she was not as good as Yun Jian. Yu Luo hated it when people said that she was not as good as others. Although Yun Jian did not say that she was not as good as Yu Luo, it had a different meaning when it came out of Chief Yuan's mouth. Even when Yun Jian said that she was not as good as Yu Luo was not as angry as hearing it from Chief Yuan. AI Guishuan was already glaring at Yu Luo and the rest from the side. He had spent all his effort on them, but they had lost to him? Haha, we're all military men. Winning or losing isn't important. What's most important is harmony. That's all for the PK this time. All of you should work harder and keep up the good work. Chief Yuan patted Gu Junjian and AI Guishuan's shoulders with a grin. With that, he put on his coat and found an excuse to leave. Someone like Chief Yuan naturally had a lot to deal with. Once Chief Yuan left, AI Guishuan snorted at Gu Junjian and yelled angrily at battling dragons to leave. Let's go. Yu Luo and the rest glared at Yun Jian and the rest as well. In his eyes, it was obvious that this matter was not over. Chuning and Chu Xiangnan glared back at Yu Luo and the rest until Yu Luo and the rest stormed off. Seriously, who are they? Chu Xiangnan yelled angrily as he pointed at the backs of Ai Guixuan, Yu Luo and the rest. But we're lucky we won. Jiang Weiwei flashed a rare smile and shifted her gaze to Yun Jian. She had looked down on Yun Jian as well. But now, Yun Jian was strong alone, she could lead the entire team. You guys have kept your positions in the advanced special forces. Good. Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled kindly and looked at the group, speaking first. Let's head back to the hotel later. We'll stay in F province tonight according to the original plan. You guys can go shopping in the downtown area of F province tonight. Officer Guo, would you like to come with us? Chuning cheered happily. Then she turned to look at Gu Junjian and invited him. I'm already so old, why would I want to go shopping? Go ahead, don't come back too late. Gu Junjian was kind to the group. He was fierce when he lectured them, but he would still let them relax when they needed to. I'm not going either. Yun Jian pursed her lips and stretched lazily. Chapter 528. In the end, Yun Jian was dragged out by Chu Ning and the rest. Chu Ning even said that they had won the competition so easily today because of Yun Jian. If it were not for Yun Jian, how could they have won the competition so quickly? In the end, Yun Jian could not stand Chu Ning's pestering and went with her. F province was indeed the most convenient seaside town in Z country for trade. It was crowned with the title of City of the Sea. Even the largest downtown area in F province, the street named Upper Street, was a treasure trove of crowded people and vehicles. F province was the model of the largest area in the country. Here, ordinary families could already live a well-off life. Therefore, it was not rare to see cars on the streets here. All in all, compared to Longmen City, this place in F province was a few notches higher. Although Chu Ning usually looked wild, she was a proper girl. Therefore, she began shopping for clothes and shoe stores as soon as she stepped onto the streets. Lu Shiyun and the rest were patient as they waited for Chu Ning to try on one piece of clothing after another. Yun Jian, on the other hand, leaned against the pillar in the store and closed her eyes to rest. Let's go over there and have a look. Just as Chu Ning was about to walk towards a trendy shoe store with a large pile of newly bought clothes for Chu Xiangnan to carry, Chu Xiangnan stopped her in his tracks. Chu Xiangnan could not hold it in any longer and called out to Chu Ning helplessly, Hey Chu Ning, that's enough. Look at me, I can't carry it anymore. Are you going to put the stuff on my head if you buy more? Also, aren't you embarrassed to make everyone wait for you to buy things? Chu Ning liked to let Chu Xiangnan carry her new clothes and shoes when she picked them out. Haha. Chu Ning looked at him awkwardly and pursed her lips before smiling apologetically. I couldn't help myself. So, where are we going next? Chu Ning asked with a grin. I heard that there's a martial arts school in F province. It's the biggest one in country Z. At the same time, it's equipped with the most advanced equipment. Shall we go there and have a look? Fang Xiaoran, who had been quiet, suggested. Is there really such a good place? Hee, then of course we have to go and take a look. As soon as Chu Xiangnan heard this, he immediately agreed. As he spoke, Chu Xiangnan also asked for everyone's opinion. What about you guys? Do you guys want to go? I think it's feasible. Lu Shiyun was also very interested. Then they all felt that there was no problem and turned to ask Yun Jian for her opinion. I'm going, Yun Jian replied with a single word. Let's go then. Chu Xiangnan was the first to run forward with his hands full of Chu Ning's shopping bags. After asking around, they arrived at F province's most famous dojo, Yongchun Dojo. The Eternal Spring Hall had been located here for 300 to 400 years, and the hall master of the Eternal Spring Hall was said to be the 5th-generation successor of Eternal Spring. His strength was quite astonishing. Furthermore, the Yongchun Pavilion had a very high reputation in the area. Yun Jian and the others casually asked passers-by about the location of the Yongchun Pavilion. Following the directions of the passers-by, Yun Jian and the others quickly arrived at the main entrance of the Yongchun Dojo. The main entrance of the Yongchun Dojo was at least 10 meters tall. It was indeed not a joke to say that it was the biggest martial arts school in Country Z. Chapter 529. The receptionist's polite greeting was refreshing to Chu Ning and the others. No, it's our first time here, Chu Xiangnan said to the receptionist before anyone else could. The long-term members were the kind of people who often came to the Yongchun Pavilion and had a membership card in hand. Would you like to apply for a long-term membership card? The receptionist asked again. No need. This time it was Yun Jian who refused. They would not stay in F province for a long time. They only came to F province this time because of the challenge from battling Dragon Squad. In short, Yun Jian and the others did not need the card. Even if they applied for it now, they would not be able to use it the next time they came here. Okay. The receptionist nodded and registered Yun Jian and the others. There was a lot of equipment for practicing martial arts in the dojo. There were also specialized martial arts instructors in the dojo to teach the students. Therefore, the dojo was the first choice for young people to practice martial arts. Of course, there was no shortage of young people who learned martial arts to show off. The fees in the dojo were based on the time period. There were also long-term members who paid tuition fees according to the semester or year. For people like Yun Jian and the others who would only come here once, they would naturally pay by the hour. This was the rule of the Yongchun dojo. As for other dojos, their fees might be different from the Yongchun dojo. After discussing, Lu Shiyun and the others decided to stay in the dojo for 2 hours. Chu Xiangnan was a rich man and his family did not lack money. When it was time to pay, Chu Xiangnan immediately paid everyone's fees first. Knowing that Chu Xiangnan did not care about the money, the others did not reject his kindness. After the registration, Yun Jian followed the 6 of them past the front desk and walked into a small semicircular door in an antique building. When they were at the front desk earlier, they could not see the interior of the dojo. Behind the front desk there was a large screen that blocked the inside of the dojo. They could only hear the sound of the young people training in the dojo. As soon as Yun Jian and the others entered the museum, the first thing they saw was a large mirror that had been transformed from a wall in front of them. On the left side of the museum, there was a large red Wu character. In the middle of the hall stood a large group of teenagers who were about the same age as Yun Jian. Standing in front of the teenagers was a martial arts instructor in his 40s. He had a square face and single eyelids. He was practicing martial arts. There were many hanging sandbags in the hall, as well as some equipment that would be used during martial arts practice. When he saw Yun Jian's group of 7, the martial arts instructor who was standing in front of the group of teenagers immediately stopped what he was doing. He looked at Yun Jian's group of 7 and asked, "Are you new here?" "Yes." Chu Xiangnan, who was standing close to the martial arts instructor, nodded blankly. "My surname is Su. You can call me Coach Su." Coach Su shouted. Then he motioned to Yun Jian and the others. "Come here and follow me." As soon as Coach Su finished speaking, Chu Xiangnan and Chu Ning ran over excitedly. Yun Jian followed them and stood next to the group of teenagers in a corner. Learning was something that Yun Jian paid great attention to in her previous life. Coach Su was undoubtedly the owner of Yongchun Dojo, who was also known as the 5th-generation successor of Yongchun. After teaching a set of fist techniques, Coach Su asked everyone to sit down in a circle. "Have you all learned this set of fist techniques? Now is the time to test your fist techniques. Later, come up one by one and spar with me in pairs," Coach Su said to everyone with his arms crossed in front of his chest. As soon as Coach Su finished speaking, a shout came from the entrance. "Uncle, we're here." The rather familiar female voice made Yun Jian, who was sitting in a circle with the rest of the group, feel her eyes twitch. Chapter 530. A group of people walked in through the small semicircular entrance that Yun Jian and the rest had entered through earlier. Leading them was Yu Luo, whom they had met in the military, and the 6 people beside her were members of Battling Dragons. When the plump Lin Quan walked in through the semicircular entrance, he was stuck for a moment. Over 200 kilograms of fat was indeed shocking. However, Lin Quan soon came in through the entrance, all of them following behind Yu Luo. Yun Jian had clearly noticed that Yu Luo had called Coach Su uncle earlier. Coach Su was Yu Luo's uncle? Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. This was probably the situation they were in now. Yun Jian's lips twitched as she glanced at Chu Ning and the rest, who had noticed Yu Luo and the rest as well. However, since Yun Jian and the rest were sitting among the youths, Yu Luo and the rest had not noticed them yet. However, Chu Ning and the rest did not look too happy. Gu Junjian and Ai Guixuan were not on good terms, which meant that Yu Luo and the rest were destined to be enemies when they ran into each other in the future. Moreover, Yu Luo and the rest had to resort to underhanded means to win when the 2 teams were in a PK. As a result, Yun Jian and her friends disliked them even more. "It's Miss Yu. Our Coach Su is her uncle. Also, I heard that Miss Yu is a candidate for the Advanced Special Forces. Do you know Battling Dragons, who arrested a high-ranking member of a black market gang some time ago? She's one of them." Once Yu Luo and the rest appeared, the youths who were sitting in a circle on the floor immediately started discussing excitedly. They looked as if they had seen their idols. In fact, Battling Dragons formed by Yu Luo and the rest had become the idol of the youths in F province. Be it in school or in society, everyone was talking about how amazing Battling Dragons was. They had such achievements at such a young age. Moreover, Yu Luo and the rest did not hide what they had done at all. They would even exaggerate it so that everyone would know about their achievements. That was their ultimate goal. Therefore, Yu Luo and the rest had become idols in many people's hearts. Advanced Special Forces candidate? Wow, how amazing. Someone immediately chimed in, and there was no lack of envy and admiration in their words. Yu Luo and everyone else in Battling Dragons held their heads high as they felt the crowd's admiration. Yu Luo's lips curled into a smile as she boldly scanned the entire place. She looked at the group of youths sitting on the ground with disdain as if she was looking at ants. Coach Su looked at his niece Yu Luo. Before he could say anything, he saw his niece sweep her gaze across the group of people. Her gaze suddenly locked onto a slender figure. Yu Luo pointed at the slim figure and exclaimed, "You, why are you here?" After being called out, Yun Jian did not flinch. She casually put her hands in her trouser pockets and slowly stood up. Yun Jian looked straight at Yu Luo. Seeing Yu Luo's murderous glare, Yun Jian merely smiled and threatened, "So, why can't I be here?" Chapter 531. Xiao Luo, she's a guest. How can you do this? Coach Su frowned and said when he saw Yu Luo pointing at the door to chase Yun Jian away. Coach Su's impression of his niece had always been that she was immature. However, it was undeniable that Yu Luo was very talented. She could pick up any hint he gave her in martial arts. Therefore, no matter how much Coach Su disliked Yu Luo, he still took her in as his disciple. Yu Luo pointed at Yun Jian and yelled at her as soon as she entered. This was his dojo after all, so even Coach Su could not help but reprimand Yu Luo. "Uncle, she has a grudge against me. Stay out of this." Yu Luo already saw Yun Jian as her enemy and hated her to the core. Therefore, she did not hold back even in front of everyone. Yu Luo then led a few members of Battling Dragons to Yun Jian's side. She pointed at Yun Jian and taunted, "All right, you're not leaving, are you? Fine. We're no match for you in the military. Do you dare to fight me now?" Coach Su's eyelids twitched at Yu Luo's blatant taunt. He was very clear about his niece's ability. Other things aside, Yu Luo was quite powerful in terms of strength alone. Even Coach Yu had to admit that it was only a matter of time before his niece surpassed him in strength. "Come on. Let's fight. Let's fight. Let's fight." It was a rare opportunity to witness the ability of the legendary Yu Luo from Battling Dragons. The group of youths were all excited and cheered excitedly. When Yun Jian stood up, Chu Ning and the others were already standing behind Yun Jian. At this moment, Yun Jian was looking straight at Yu Luo without flinching in the face of the provocation from the group led by Yu Luo. "You want me to fight you?" Yun Jian raised her voice. Yu Luo listened to the jeers around her and her uncle Coach Su's worried face, afraid that she would hurt Yun Jian. She replied arrogantly to Yun Jian's words, "Yes, do you dare? You don't deserve to fight me." Yun Jian smiled contemptuously. She glanced at Yu Luo and waved at Chu Xiangnan and the others, indicating that they should leave with her. It wasn't that Yun Jian didn't dare, but that Yu Luo didn't deserve it. Just as Yun Jian was about to walk around Yu Luo and leave, Yu Luo suddenly stopped her. Yu Luo was enraged by Yun Jian's words. She stopped Yun Jian and said in a frivolous tone, "Do you think our dojo is a place you can come and go as you please?" Yun Jian's sharp eyes flashed at Yu Luo's words. "Wow, Miss Yu is so domineering. She's indeed my idol. I admire her so much." A guy looked at Yu Luo with admiration. "I'm about to become her fan." Another boy said exaggeratedly while covering his face. The atmosphere was at its most tense moment. Just when the atmosphere between the two sides was extremely stiff, a group of people suddenly rushed in through the semicircular door. This group of people who had just rushed in were all dressed in black, and their faces were all covered with black veils. What was more frightening was that they all had pistols in their hands. Ah! The group of youths sitting in a circle on the ground panicked when they saw them. They were scared half to death by the group of people who barged into the dojo with guns. Coach Su, Yu Luo, and the others were shocked by the sudden turn of events. Chapter 532. A hijacking. At that moment, the same image appeared in everyone's minds. It was a man in black who had entered the room with a gun. Could it be an assassin organization? Yu Luo, who had been aggressive earlier, turned pale with fright when she saw the armed men in black. Everyone in Battling Dragons' expression changed instantly. No one had expected such a turn of events. Instructor Su frowned. He was obviously shocked by the turn of events. He had never expected his dojo to be invaded by a group of unknown criminals. Although he did not know their intentions, he could tell from their tone that they were up to no good. However, it was the first time the group of youths in the dojo had encountered such a situation. In everyone's opinion, this kind of danger could only happen in movies. Since when had they encountered such a frightening situation in real life? Therefore, all the youths present screamed uncontrollably in fear. Yun Jian's gaze sharpened. She did not expect the men in black to suddenly barge into the dojo. Instructor Su gulped. He was the first to realize that something was amiss when one of the men in black pointed a gun at him and threatened him. "Quiet, everyone, quiet down," Instructor Su yelled at the crowd. However, none of the youths present had ever encountered such a situation. They were all running away in fear. Who would listen to Instructor Su? Bang bang bang. The man in black was enraged. He grabbed his gun and fired at the 3 youths who were running away in all directions. At the sound of the gunshots, 3 youths fell to the ground immediately. Then a stream of blood flowed out from the 3 living creatures. They were dead. Seeing this scene, everyone was so scared that they shut their mouths and found a corner to hide. Run again. This will be your fate. The man in black with the gun did not seem to realize that he had just killed 3 people. He smiled cruelly as if human lives were worthless. His eerie eyes sent chills down everyone's spines. Even Yu Luo, who was full of vigor earlier, restrained her aura and dared not make a sound. Beep, beep, beep. At that moment, the sound of police sirens came from outside the dojo. It was obvious that the sirens were aimed at the men in black. Everyone quickly realized that they might have become hostages. This group of black-clothed men could very well be the repeat offenders of some criminal organization. After all, how could a normal person carry a pistol? Seeing that no one dared to make a sound, the man in black swept the gun in his hand across the crowd again and shouted, "Put your hands on your heads and squat down." Everyone was so scared that their legs trembled, but they didn't dare to disobey the black-clothed man's words. They all crouched down with their hands on their heads. Even Chu Ning, Chu Xiangnan, and the others did as they were told. After all, under such circumstances, if he didn't do as he was told, he would be the one to die. A head-on clash wouldn't work. Yu Luo and the others, including Coach Su, dared not say anything. These black-clothed men had just killed 3 people. 3 human lives had been taken just like that. But no one dared to make a sound because everyone was afraid of the gun in the man's hand. Yun Jian's eyes flashed. She followed the crowd and squatted down, holding her head. Before the situation was clear, it was best to remain silent. After everyone had squatted down with their hands on their heads, the police's loudspeaker was heard from outside the dojo. "Those inside, put down the hostages and surrender immediately. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless." Hostages. This group of black-clothed men was obviously a criminal organization. Chapter 533. After suppressing everyone at the scene, the man in black who had shot and killed the 3 youths turned to look at the man in black standing beside him. He said in English, "Jay, go out and tell those stupid policemen that if they dare to come in, there are almost 100 people in this martial arts club. They can forget about leaving this place alive." The man in black called Jay nodded and left after receiving the order. Yun Jian lowered her eyes and pursed her lips. From the way the men in black spoke and behaved, they were foreigners. The faces of the men in black were covered with a black veil, only revealing a pair of dark eyes. Hence, no one could tell that they were foreigners at first glance. Yun Jian quickly came to a conclusion. The reason the men in black had rushed to the dojo to kidnap them was because there were too many people here. In the dojo there were almost 100 students under Coach Su alone. If the men in black wanted to escape from the police, it would be better to take a group of hostages than 1 or 2 hostages. If they took 1 or 2 hostages, the police might even send someone over to rescue them. However, if they took a group of hostages and the police wanted to rescue them, it would cause a huge commotion. Moreover, if all the hostages died, it would cause a huge commotion in society. Hence, even if the police wanted to rescue them, they would have to think twice. The man in black called Jay soon returned from outside. He stood in front of the man who had just killed the 3 youths and was also the leader of the men in black. He said to him in English, "The policemen are scared, but they didn't retreat. We should inform the headquarters and ask for help." From the sound of it, this group of black-clothed men was still organized. Yun Jian stared at the floor. Yu Luo and the rest were so scared that they did not make a sound. So what if they were advanced special forces candidates? They were just candidates, but the other party had guns. When the black-clothed man called Hertz heard this, he took out a mobile phone from his pocket and dialed a number. No one dared to make a sound. It was eerily quiet. The only sound that could be heard was the beeping of the phone, which resounded in the surroundings. There were also the corpses of the 3 youths who had just been killed, causing everyone present to tremble in fear. Everyone was trembling uncontrollably in fear and horror. Facing such a horrible criminal, Even Coach Su did not dare to make a sound. He hugged his head and squatted on the ground. Even if he moved, he was afraid that the group of men in black would see him and kill him like how they killed the three youths. At this moment the call went through. The man in black named Hercules spoke into the phone. "I'm Hercules. I'm on a mission in Country Z. A group of police officers found me and surrounded a martial arts club. Quickly come to my aid." "Got it." A crisp sound came from the other end of the phone, and then the call was hung up. After he hung up the phone, he put it back into his pocket. Just as he put it into his pocket, the back of his tightly wrapped hand was suddenly exposed. Yun Jian happened to catch a glimpse of the back of Hector's hand. He saw that there was a golden rose imprinted on the back of Hertz's hand. The mark of the rose seemed to have been deeply imprinted with something. The golden flower looked particularly conspicuous. Yun Jian's pupils suddenly shrank. Chapter 534. Every member of an assassin or secret agent organization would have their own unique mark. The Kosha mercenaries had a skull mark. The Inferno Ring was an assassin organization second only to the Inhun and Kosha mercenaries. The reason why Yun Jian knew that the mark on the back of his hand was the Inferno Ring was because she had done her research on it. Ever since she found out that the organization that killed her brother in her previous life was the Inferno Ring, an assassin organization second only to the Inhun and Kosha mercenaries, Yun Jian had been collecting information on the Inferno Ring. Now that her brother was back, Yun Jian would not stop there. She had always been a vengeful person who would repay a debt of gratitude. She was very protective and would not allow anyone to challenge her bottom line. Her brother was her bottom line, and the Inferno Ring was the needle that had touched her bottom line. Previously, Yun Jian had not taken action against the Inferno Ring because she had not gotten rid of the old Kosha mercenaries. With the Kosha mercenaries' current situation, it was not wise to go against the Inferno Ring. If they were not careful, they could be wiped out by the Inferno Ring. Now that the old Kosha mercenaries had been eliminated, the mercenary group was still undergoing major changes. After all, the old men's influence was not to be underestimated. Snake, Lizard and Tiger. Leopard had been very busy recently. Going against the Inferno Ring under such circumstances would not benefit the Kosha mercenaries. That was why Yun Jian had not taken action. Now that her brother was back, the image of her brother before he died in her previous life was deeply imprinted in Yun Jian's heart. She would make the Inferno Ring pay the price. Perhaps Yun Jian now knew that the Kosha mercenaries could not go against the Inferno Ring, but since the Inferno Ring had sent themselves to her doorstep, she would not hold back. The Inferno Ring dared to hurt her brother, so she would give them a New Year's gift in return. After Hertz received the call from the organization and hid his phone in his pocket, Yun Jian suddenly stood up slowly. She stared at Hertz and the men in black from the Inferno Ring with a murderous look in her eyes. At the same time, Yun Jian stood up in front of everyone's fearful eyes. She looked at Hertz and said with a tinge of anger, "You are from the Inferno Ring?" Did she want to die? Everyone present cursed in their hearts. Originally, the group of black-clothed men had gradually shifted their attention away, which meant that the people present would not be killed like the three youths who had just died. In the end, Yun Jian suddenly stood up and yelled at he who had just killed someone in a furious tone. Was she tired of living? Or what? And now, the group of black-clothed men had turned their attention to them. She wanted to die, but she didn't want to implicate them. Yu Luo watched in shock as Yun Jian stood up. Coach Su also looked at Yun Jian in fear. Chu Ning, Chu Xiangnan and the rest were also puzzled, but they looked at her worriedly. Everyone present turned to look at Yun Jian. Hertz and the men in black shifted their attention to her as well. "Little girl? Ah, you want to die?" Hertz said to Yun Jian in Mandarin. He raised his gun, intending to kill Yun Jian with one shot. "Answer me, are you from the Inferno Ring?" Yun Jian raised her voice and shouted. She suddenly raised her voice and asked Hertz to pull the trigger. Hertz's hand that was about to point the gun at Yun Jian paused. "Haha, since you know who we are, you must die." Hertz suddenly laughed. He was about to pull the trigger and point the gun at Yun Jian. "I'll return the same sentence to you. You from the Inferno Ring must die." Yun Jian's eyes turned sharp as she said that. There was a flash of light. The people present who did not fully understand felt their hearts clenched tightly. Chapter 535. Hertz's hand that was about to pull the trigger trembled when Yun Jian's murderous aura flashed across his face. Hertz was an assassin from the Inferno Ring. Although he was not on the international ranking of assassins and secret agents, he was quite famous internationally. As an assassin from the Inferno Ring, when had he ever been threatened by an unknown little girl like this? If he was threatened by a little girl today, wouldn't he become a laughingstock if word got out? Hence, when Hertz looked at Yun Jian again, his expression turned vicious. Interesting. Interesting. I didn't expect such an interesting little girl like you to exist in such a lousy place. Hertz was in no hurry to kill Yun Jian. He laughed maniacally. His rough voice with standard Chinese pronunciation sent chills down everyone's spines. No matter what everyone thought, he had just killed 3 people. He had killed 3 living beings. This was an ironclad fact. He killed people like they were cutting grass. Hence, everyone present felt a sense of resistance and fear towards Hertz. Almost everyone was disgusted by Yun Jian's actions. Yun Jian's actions had attracted the attention of the men in black. However, at this moment everyone realized one thing: they were done for. The men in black had guns. No matter how powerful Yun Jian was, could she be faster than bullets? Dream on. Yun Jian. Chu Ning watched worriedly as Yun Jian stood up to face Hertz. Although she was also terrified, she wanted to take the risk of reaching out to pull Yun Jian away from Hertz and his men's attention. No one dared to make a sound in front of a gun. Yun Jian avoided Chu Ning's pull. Almost as soon as Hertz said that she was interesting, she slowly walked toward Hertz and his men under the horrified gazes of Yu Luo and the others. TSK, since you're asking for it, don't blame me then. It was rare for Hertz to meet such an interesting person. He cracked his neck and laughed weirdly. Then he raised his gun with a sinister smile. Hertz didn't kill Yun Jian because he swore that the girl in front of him wasn't a threat to him at all. When Yun Jian walked towards him, Hertz felt that although this young girl was interesting, there was no need to keep a disobedient person around. Bang! Under the panicked gazes of Yu Luo, Coach Su, and the group of teenagers, Hertz fired a shot at Yun Jian. This shot caused the hearts of everyone present to tighten. Chu Ning and the others watched as Yun Jian walked towards he. She had no intention of dodging the muzzle of the gun, so they were even more terrified. In the next second, Hull fired his pistol. Chu Ning and the rest were shocked. When they regained their senses, they screamed, "Yun Jian!" Could it be that something really happened? Yun Jian was so powerful. But no matter how fast she was, could she be faster than a bullet? Dead. The scene of Yun Jian being shot in the head and blood splattering everywhere immediately appeared in everyone's mind. Everyone was terrified. However, all they saw was, just as He Jie was laughing, anticipating that Yun Jian would be killed by him on the spot, he pulled the trigger. The moment the bullet flew out of its shell, Yun Jian threw herself to the ground at the speed of a racing car and dodged the bullet by a hair's breadth. However, as she dodged Hertz's shot and threw herself to the ground, a spinning butterfly knife flew out from her arms. Hertz, who was standing far away, was obviously caught off guard. By the time Hertz reacted and hurriedly dodged, the butterfly knife had already shot into his left eyeball. Ah! Hertz howled instantly. Everyone looked over and saw that Hertz's left eyeball had been pierced deeply by the butterfly knife. The eyeball exploded and blood splattered everywhere. Seeing this, everyone present, including Yu Luo and Coach Su, was completely shocked and terrified. Chapter 536. Everyone was stunned by this sudden turn of events. In their opinion, a person who could dodge bullets should be a deity, right? How could an ordinary person dodge bullets? However, Yun Jian's actions just now had everyone panicking. While she dodged the bullets, she threw a flying dagger at Hertz's eyeball at the same time. His eyeball exploded. Such a cruel method. And the speed at which Yun Jian threw the flying dagger was so accurate. Not a single bit off. How could everyone present not be dumbfounded? Yu Luo and the rest had their mouths agape as they watched Yun Jian's strange moves in shock. Coach Su and the group of teenagers present were also completely dumbfounded. As for Chu Ning and the rest, although they had some understanding of Yun Jian's ability, Yun Jian's move just now completely overturned their understanding of Yun Jian. What was ability? That was what was considered ability. Ouch. Hertz squatted down slowly with his left eye covered. He let out a heart-wrenching scream, and the group of men in black behind him pointed their guns at Yun Jian. However, after Hertz's shooting and Yun Jian's backhand flying dagger, the men in black did not dare to make a move easily. Yun Jian stood in front of the group of men in black. She did not move an inch and was not afraid of the guns pointed at her. Kill her. Kill her. Hertz covered his blown eyeball. He did not pull the butterfly knife out easily. Instead, he endured the tearing pain and spoke to the other men in black. You've dirted my knife. Just as Hertz stared at Yun Jian with hatred in his single eye and covered his blown left eye with one hand, Yun Jian's faint voice was heard again. Yu Luo and the others were struck with fear again when they saw how Yun Jian could still spit out such words calmly in the face of the guns pointed at her. At this moment they realized something. This Yun Jian was not human at all. These men in black were criminals. Criminals with pistols in their hands. As for Yun Jian, she was not afraid at all. Not only was she not afraid, but she even retaliated by blinding one of the criminal's eyes. She even dared to say that he had dirted her knife. Did she not know that this would agitate the other party? If the guns in the hands of these men in black went off accidentally, everyone present would not be able to leave alive. Kill. Kill. Kill this little girl. Go to hell. It was Hertz's first time being humiliated like this. He could only stare at Yun Jian with a single eye while his mouth was already growling menacingly. Yes. Hertz's subordinate, who was Jay's head, nodded. After that, Jay raised his gun and aimed it at Yun Jian. Bang. Jay fired a shot. However, the moment Jay fired, he shifted the gun aimed at Yun Jian and aimed it at Hertz's heart. Bang. With a gunshot, Hertz was killed on the spot by Jia. The moment he fell, Hertz looked at his subordinate Jia in shock. He could not believe it, but he used the last bit of strength in his life to yell at Jia, I'll kill her and take over your position. So Hertz, please die. Jay looked at Hertz mercilessly as he fell to the ground. Hertz fell to the ground and died on the spot. Everyone present was shocked again. This group of people would actually kill each other. Yun Jian only narrowed her eyes, but the murderous intent in her eyes was even more obvious. Hertz was not as courageous as Jay. Chapter 537. To everyone, Jay, who had killed his comrade, was even scarier than Hertz. How could he kill his comrade? What kind of heart did he have to be so cold-blooded? Yun Jian Chuning was anxious for Yun Jian. She was afraid that something would happen to Yun Jian. She was so anxious that her heart was trembling. It's okay. Yun Jian is so powerful. She can handle it herself. We can't go out. Otherwise, we'll be a burden to her and mess up her plans. Chu Xiangnan did not know when he grabbed Chuning's hand. He patted it to comfort her. Afraid that she would be a burden to Yun Jian, Chuning nodded at Chu Xiangnan. However, Chuning was sizing up Yun Jian from afar. On the other end, Yun Jian stood where she was and stared at Jia with her seductive eyes. She did not make a sound after hearing Jia's brazen words just now. Jay did not dare to act rashly. After all, Yun Jian's display of skill just now was too impressive. Hertz's shot was something that even a third-rate assassin could barely dodge or even get hit. However, Yun Jian had dodged it. More importantly, when Yun Jian dodged Hertz's shot, she threw out a butterfly knife. The butterfly knife accurately pierced Hertz's left eye. To be honest, if Yun Jian had not pierced Hertz's left eye and caused Hertz to fly into a rage, Jay would not have had the chance to kill Hertz and replace him. Yun Jian was not enraged by Jay's words. Her expression did not change at all. While Jay was on guard, Yun Jian suddenly raised her right leg. Jay was shocked by Yun Jian's movement and immediately became alert. He did not forget that Hertz's left eye was pierced by Yun Jian because he had underestimated Yun Jian. This young girl, just based on the previous few points, she was not someone to be trifled with. Yun Jian, whom Jay thought was a trick, walked toward the dead Hertz while Jay, the men in black, and Yu Luo and the rest looked on suspiciously. When Jay saw Yun Jian walking toward him, he subconsciously moved aside and gave way to Hertz's body. Yun Jian's skills just now had all of them spooked. Yun Jian walked to Hertz's body and stepped on his body mercilessly before everyone's eyes. She then pulled out her butterfly knife from Hertz's left eye. Yun Jian reached into her pocket and took out a few pieces of tissue to wipe the butterfly knife on her hand naturally. So filthy, Yun Jian commented faintly. At that moment, Yun Jian was facing Jay and the rest. Jay wanted to use this opportunity to shoot Yun Jian. I hope your blood doesn't dirty my knife, Yun Jian said in her angelic voice while facing Jay and the rest. What? When Jay heard that, his hand that was holding the gun froze. After wiping the butterfly knife, Yun Jian turned around slowly. In the next second, Yu Luo and the rest saw something flash before their eyes. She moved. Yun Jian's figure flashed. She fell and rolled. In an instant, she was beside Jay and the men in black. A massacre ensued. Her silhouette was like a specter. Wherever she passed, a man in black would fall to the ground before he could react in time. She was a true killer. She killed people like flies. Yun Jian weaved through the crowd, leaving no survivors wherever the butterfly knife in her hand touched. Jay only recovered from his shock when all the men in black behind him fell to the ground. Chapter 538. The girl's tall and slender figure became clear at that moment. In the dark dojo, Yun Jian's tall and slender figure and her long, flowing ponytail stood out. Yun Jian, on the other hand, struck fear and shock into Yu Luo and the rest. She had killed someone. Once she attacked, the men in black did not even know how they died. Could this be her true strength? Yu Luo, Lin Quan, and the rest felt a surge of fear and shock in their hearts. Although they were advanced special forces, if they were asked to kill someone, it would be a completely different matter from carrying out a mission. Although these criminals deserved to be killed. These criminals had killed people in the dojo and threatened the police. As an advanced special forces soldier, Yun Jian had the right to execute these criminals on the spot. However, a normal person, especially a third-year middle school student like Yun Jian, did not show any fear after killing these criminals with her own hands. Instead, she pressed on. If it had been Yu Luo was sure that her legs would have turned to jelly under the other party's threat. Yu Luo's battling dragons was rumored to be powerful, but they had a bottom line after all. However, Yun Jian crossed the bottom line again and again. She was so mysterious that no one could see through her. Jia was completely terrified when he saw this. He was standing beside the men in black who had been with him. Now he was the only one left alive out of the dozen of them. This little girl had killed someone right in front of him. His men did not even have time to raise their guns and counterattack before they were killed by her. Was she even human? For the first time, Jia felt fear from the bottom of his heart. Your turn. Yun Jian extended her butterfly knife and aimed it at Jia. The gun in Ming Jia's hand looked more convincing, while Yun Jian only had a butterfly knife in her hand. Gun and knife. Even an idiot would know who was faster. However, everyone was leaning towards Yun Jian's knife. Yun Jian's moves earlier made everyone feel that she would not lose. She would not lose either. The Inferno Ring has no grudge against you. Little girl, why do you want to kill me? Jia's hand holding the gun trembled slightly, but he still looked at Yun Jian as if he was trying to buy time so that he could live. No one wanted to die. If there was a chance to live, who would want to die? Grudge. Yun Jian flicked the butterfly knife lightly. Looking down at it, the scene of her brother being beheaded in her past life and his dried tears flashed in her mind. It was not that Yun Jian was unwilling to walk out of her past life, but her character's character. Her Xiao Yunju had been treated so cruelly. He was only 8 years of age. Although Yun Jian's head back Yun Jian's hand and on the other hand Yun's of Yun Yun's aunts. For example, Xiao Yunju never dared to sleep alone. When he wanted to sleep with her, he was dragged away by Ce. Ce treated Xiao Yunju well, so Xiao Yunju relied on him. To an 8-year-old boy, all of this was caused by Xiao Yunju's SSSSSSS. Xiao Yunju was killed cruelly. It was not as if he did not have memories of his past life. How could the word grudge describe the trauma that followed him for life? The Inferno Ring and the Kosha mercenaries are irreconcilable enemies. I, the killing god, will destroy all of you even if I have to overturn everything. Yun Jian's gaze sharpened as she suddenly spoke. Kill, kill. Jia gritted his teeth. Then he suddenly thought of something. Kill and kill? Kill, kill. Jia was stunned. When he came back to his senses, he suddenly remembered Yun Jian's identity. He stared at Yun Jian with his eyes wide open. Chapter 539. Jay was dead. Everyone present was horrified, but they were even more horrified when they saw Yun Jian killing the armed criminals with a knife. Yun Jian had already walked forward to pick up her butterfly knife. She took out a tissue from her pocket and wiped it gently. Chu Ning and the others were much less shocked than Yu Luo and the rest. After all, Yun Jian had single-handedly annihilated an entire gang back then. It was comparable to what she was doing now. Moreover, it was a gang back then, so it was natural that they had guns and sticks. If Yun Jian could wipe out such a gang, what more now? Chu Ning stood up immediately when she saw that Yun Jian was fine. Ow, 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 be gentle. At this moment, Chu Xiangnan, who had been comforting Chu Ning and holding her hand, was brought to his feet as well. Chu Xiangnan did not react in time and was pulled up by Chu Ning, so he howled. Why are you holding my hand? Shameless Chu Xiangnan, how dare you? Chu Ning only realized that Chu Xiangnan had been holding her hand earlier. Chu Ning jumped up and gave Chu Xiangnan a chestnut as she spoke. Chu Xiangnan howled again when Chu Ning knocked his head. It was a sense of relief after a disaster. Especially when the group of criminals were killing people wantonly just now and they were faced with gun after gun. Everyone present could have died at any time, but someone suddenly jumped out and saved them all. At this moment, everyone did not have to worry about being killed by the group of criminals just now. It was a sense of relief when one realized that they were still alive after a disaster. Those who had not experienced it would not understand it. Yun Jian, that's great, you're fine. Chu Ning jumped up and knocked Chu Xiangnan on the head before running to Yun Jian's side. Yun Jian's back was facing everyone. When she turned around after wiping her butterfly knife, her eyes were still frighteningly cold. Chu Ning trembled slightly but she quickly calmed down. Amen. Yun Jian nodded at Chu Ning as she recollected her viciousness. Chu Xiangnan, Lu Shiyun, Jiang Weiwei, Fang Xiaoran, and the rest who stood up one after another, as well as Yu Luo and the rest who had yet to recover from their fear, stood up one after another. After Lu Shiyun, Jiang Weiwei, and the rest stood up, they followed Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan to Yun Jian. Haha Yun Jian, you were so cool just now. I admire you so much. Chu Xiangnan stood where he was and imitated Yun Jian's movements. He looked at Yun Jian with a grin, looking spirited. His face that could be considered handsome was instantly filled with pride. Yun Jian was a member of Team Monarch. By the way, Yun Jian, why was that guy so scared when he heard that your codename is Slashing God? Has your Slashing God reputation spread so far and wide? After imitating Yun Jian's actions exaggeratedly, Chu Xiangnan looked at Yun Jian curiously and asked. Yun Jian glanced at Chu Xiangnan's comically handsome face. She suddenly had an illusion that Chu Xiangnan's comical face was not worthy of his handsome face. Take a guess. Yun Jian forced a smile and turned to walk out of the dojo. Is it because your Slashing God codename sounds better? That can't be right, my codename is Thunder. Thunder, 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 no matter how it sounds cooler than yours. Ah. Chu Xiangnan praised himself for a while. Chapter 540. Oh, what's wrong? I didn't say anything wrong. Chu Ning, your codename is Chi 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 Chi. That sounds like osmanthus. That's what I call rustic. Chu Xiangnan was indignant as he dragged Chu Ning into it. This time Chu Ning was furious. She jumped up and slapped Chu Xiangnan's head a few times before she stopped. Poor Chu Xiangnan opened his mouth aggrievedly but dared not say anything in the end. Yun Jian, where are you going? Jiang Weiwei noticed Yun Jian's movement as Chu Ning spoke to Chu Xiangnan. Yun Jian was walking out at that moment. Jiang Weiwei could not help but ask when she saw that. Jiang Weiwei was no longer the same as before. Even when facing the other members of Team Monarch, Jiang Weiwei had put away her initial arrogance. For some people, they would never realize their mistakes after doing something wrong. However, when some people realized that they had done something wrong, they would be able to quickly realize it and correct themselves under certain circumstances. Obviously, Jiang Weiwei belonged to the latter. In the beginning, she thought that she was born in a military family and was the most outstanding person in the team. Naturally, she would have some arrogance. However, after Yun Jian appeared, Jiang Weiwei realized that her previous behavior was wrong. Yun Jian's ability was above hers. More importantly, Yun Jian was never arrogant. She had never shown her ability to show off or for other reasons. Keep a low profile and do things in a high-profile manner. That was Yun Jian's principle. Obviously, Yun Jian's behavior had affected Jiang Weiwei. Even Yun Jian, who was many times more powerful than her, kept a low profile. What right did Jiang Weiwei have to be so high profile? One good thing about Jiang Weiwei was that she would correct her mistakes. Just like how she was the strongest in the group, that was because when Jiang Weiwei was practicing, she would correct her mistakes. Once she realized her mistakes, she would correct them immediately. Jiang Weiwei's ability and this were inseparable. I'm going out for a walk. Yun Jian was already standing at the semicircular entrance of the dojo. She turned her body slightly, revealing her beautiful face as she replied to Jiang Weiwei. Then Yun Jian's long and narrow eyelashes fluttered up and down. She pursed her lips and raised her eyebrows with a half-smile. If I don't go out, the sirens outside won't stop. At this time, the people in the martial arts hall also noticed that there were police cars parked outside the martial arts hall. Obviously, they were here to arrest the group of men in black who were killed by Yun Jian. At the same time, a policeman was holding a loudspeaker outside the martial arts center, shouting into the building over and over again, "The people inside, put down the hostages and surrender immediately. As long as you let go of the hostages, the police will be lenient with you." This group of policemen who had surrounded the martial arts center but didn't dare to act rashly because of the group of black-clothed men who had kidnapped the hostages had already shouted through the loudspeaker until their mouths were dry. This group of policemen also requested backup from their superiors. Not long after, the city's Advanced Special Forces officer AI Guishuan arrived at the scene upon receiving the request for backup. AI Guishuan had received news that Battling Dragons, whom he had focused on training, was being held hostage in this martial arts center, so he had to come today even if he didn't want to. Not long after, even Gu Junjin, who was staying in the hotel, rushed to the scene upon receiving the news. A policeman who was in charge of maintaining order at the scene told AI Guishuan and Gu Junjin, who had just arrived, what had happened. "Those criminals are all armed with guns. They fled into the martial arts center after being pursued by the police. There are so many hostages in the martial arts center, and some of the neighbors even heard gunshots from the martial arts center earlier. I'm afraid there's someone inside who's most likely dead. Someone's coming out. Oh my God, it's a little girl. A policeman who had been keeping an eye on the entrance shouted as he pointed at the entrance. Everyone was shocked and quickly turned their eyes to the entrance. Chapter 541. The moment they saw Yun Jian, the police officers surrounding the dojo, the officer who had explained the situation to Ai Guixuan and Gu Junjian, as well as Gu Junjian and Ai Guixuan, were all dumbfounded. Officer Bao, who was in charge of maintaining order at the scene, had been standing here ever since he had threatened them that the hostages inside would be killed if they dared to arrest the hostages. Moreover, the criminals inside were armed with guns. All of them were armed, so no matter how capable the hostages inside were, they would not be able to fight with guns. Officer Bao later received news that Battling Dragons, who were candidates for the Advanced Special Forces, and Team Monarch, who were official members of the Advanced Special Forces, were in the dojo. However, even if Team Monarch and Battling Dragons were in the dojo, they would still be suppressed. That was because the criminals were powerful. Officer Bao had no idea where the criminals had come from. By the time he led his men to surround them, they had already escaped. Before they escaped, the criminals had attempted to assassinate F Province's deputy mayor. However, the assassination failed and the deputy mayor was only shocked. Fortunately, he was fine. After their whereabouts were discovered, the criminals fled all the way to the dojo and held everyone in the dojo hostage. The criminals must have known that they could not escape with the entire city under lockdown, so they fled into the dojo in an attempt to buy time. Officer Bao was no fool. He had already guessed that the criminals were most likely from an organization. He had planned to inform his superiors for backup, but he did not expect a young girl to appear at the dojo's entrance. Don't go there. Don't go there yet. It might be a trap. Officer Bao was about to lead his men to where Yun Jian was when Ai Guixuan stopped them with a righteous expression. Ai Guixuan was F Province's Advanced Special Forces officer after all, so Officer Bao stopped in his tracks when he heard him. Might be a trap. Otherwise, why would Yun Jian be the only one who came out? Where were the criminals? Ai Guixuan did not think that Yun Jian could subdue the criminals alone. After all, those criminals had guns in their hands. No matter how powerful Yun Jian was, could she have dodged the gunman's pistol and subdued him? She wasn't one of those internationally renowned terrifying existences. Seeing that everyone had stopped in their tracks, Gu Junjian did not blame them. After all, in such a situation the police naturally had to consider the bigger picture. Gu Junjian, on the other hand, walked towards Yun Jian. He knew Yun Jian very well. She was someone who had killed the 10th most powerful assassin in the world. How could those gunmen do anything to her? In fact, when Gu Junjian first heard that Yun Jian and the others were trapped in the dojo as hostages, his heart tightened. Although he had a son, his son did not like him. Therefore, Gu Junjian treated the 7 members of Team Monarch as his own children. Gu Junjian's first reaction when he heard the news was to explain to Qin Yiru if something happened to Yun Jian. From Qin Yiru's usual behavior, Gu Junjian could tell that Yun Yi and Yun Jian were Qin Yiru's roots and Qin Yiru's life. Based on this, Gu Junjian could not let anything happen to Yun Jian. The moment Gu Junjian walked towards Yun Jian walked towards them as well. Chapter 542. Even Officer Bao could not help frowning at Ai Guixuan's action of drawing his gun. Regular police officers were not equipped with pistols, but as the leader of the Advanced Special Forces, Ai Guixuan had the right to carry one. Even if Ai Guixuan had the right to wear a pistol, he did not have the right to point it at Yun Jian. Yun Jian was an Advanced Special Forces soldier, but she was still a 15-year-old girl. Even if Yun Jian was really being controlled by the criminals, Ai Guixuan did not have the right to point his gun at Yun Jian. Therefore, Ai Guixuan's action made many of the policemen around them frown. Ai Guixuan, what are you doing? Gu Junjian frowned when he saw Ai Guixuan pointing his gun at Yun Jian. He then walked over and covered the muzzle of Ai Guixuan's gun, preventing it from pointing at Yun Jian. Gu Junjian was furious. He knew that Ai Guixuan had pointed his gun at Yun Jian purely out of hatred for him. However, Ai Guixuan knew that he could not do anything to him, so he shifted his hatred to Yun Jian instead. What can I do? She must be being controlled by the criminals. Gu Junjian, you shouldn't be protecting her like this even if you can't bear to. Are you still a soldier? Use your brain and you should know that she can't win against those criminals. I'm doing this for everyone's sake. Ai Guixuan said righteously. Smack. Gu Junjian swung his arm and slapped the gun out of Ai Guishuan's hand. He glared at Ai Guishuan, the fury in his eyes unstoppable. Ai Guishuan, don't you dare lay a finger on my people. Gu Junjian was trembling with rage. He took out his pistol from the holster by his waist and roared as he pointed the muzzle at Ai Guishuan's head. Seeing this, Officer Bao started to tremble in fear. Two officers were arguing in front of him and both of them were leaders of the advanced special forces. What should he do in such a situation? Yun Jian walked down the stairs and stood 10 meters away from Ai Guishuan and Gu Junjian. Those people are already dead. Yun Jian was standing 10 meters away from Ai Guishuan and Gu Junjian. Her gaze did not waver as she watched their actions, but she uttered the shocking words softly. Those people were already dead? Those bandits? How did he die? How could he be dead? Could it be? All the police officers at the scene, including Gu Junjian who had his gun pressed against Ai Guishuan's head, as well as Ai Guishuan and Officer Bao, turned to look at Yun Jian. They were shocked. There was a deathly silence. Ai Guishuan was the first to react. He slapped away the gun that Gu Junjian had pressed against his head and grumbled at Yun Jian, "Dead? How is this possible?" Ai Guishuan was about to dash toward the martial arts center. 2 steps later, Ai Guishuan suddenly remembered something. He paused and raised his pistol again. His other hand rested on the handle as he cautiously made his way to the martial arts center. He still did not trust Yun Jian. Looking down, Yun Jian could not help feeling amused as she watched Ai Guishuan walk past her gingerly. "Let's go in too." Gu Junjian put his gun away and signaled to Officer Bao before the few of them walked into the martial arts center. Chapter 543. When Yun Jian followed Gu Junjian back to the dojo, she saw Ai Guishuan standing dumbly by the semicircular door before she could even see it. Clack. The gun in Ai Guishuan's hand fell to the ground. Ai Guishuan was rooted to the spot. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Officer Bao panicked. He quickly raised his baton with the other officers and stared at the door fearfully. They could only see the semicircular door from where they were but not the dojo itself. Ai Guishuan was standing at the semicircular door where everyone could see him. Officer Bao thought that Ai Guishuan had walked to the semicircular door and saw the criminals in the dojo waiting for him to walk right into the trap, causing Ai Guishuan to drop his gun in fear. Officer Bao and the others raised their batons. They did not know Yun Jian well and were skeptical of what Yun Jian had said earlier. Gu Junjian frowned but he walked toward the semicircular door fearlessly. Yun Jian glanced at Officer Bao and the others who were too afraid to move forward and followed Gu Junjian. Seeing that Gu Junjian had moved forward and there was no sound from Ai Guishuan's side, Officer Bao and the rest frowned in suspicion before following Gu Junjian. With Gu Junjian in the lead, Yun Jian in the middle and Officer Bao and the others at the back, the group soon arrived at the semicircular door. They peeked into the semicircular door. They would not have known if they had not peeked but they were shocked when they did. When Officer Bao and the others saw the situation in the dojo behind the semicircular door, the batons in their hands dropped to the ground in fright. This. Officer Bao walked around them to the semicircular door. He looked inside the door and glanced left and right a few times. He was so shocked that he was at a loss for words. He could only use the word "this" to describe the situation. All the officers were rooted to the spot. More than 10 corpses were strewn all over the dojo. Among the corpses on the ground, 3 were youths while the rest were the criminals who had entered the dojo earlier. At this moment, apart from Hertz's corpse, the rest of the gangsters who were clearly dead on the ground all had the same fatal method of death, a slash to the throat. In other words, these corpses had been killed without any signs of struggle. Judging from this, how powerful must the person who had killed these criminals be? The people who had been held hostage were leaning against the corner of the dojo, each of them frozen in fear. It was obvious that they had yet to recover from the terror earlier. These criminals couldn't have been killed by them. Even Yu Luo, who was hiding in the corner, did not dare to stand up, let alone the rest of battling dragons. Coach Su had already stood up slowly. Chu Xiangnan's group of 6 stood not too far away from the dozens of criminals. Ai Guishuan was so shocked by what he saw that he could not utter a single word. Officer Bao, on the other hand, pointed at the corpses on the ground and stammered, "WW, who killed them?" The question was directed at the group of people who were cowering in the corner. "Is this the answer you're looking for?" Just as Officer Bao spoke, a clear and refreshing voice was heard. Chapter 544. Yun Jian retracted the butterfly knife. She smiled and swung the butterfly knife a few times before keeping it in her pocket. This scene caused a wave of fear to surge in everyone's hearts. The most terrifying thing was not Yun Jian's nimble movements with the butterfly knife, but Yun Jian's action of twirling the butterfly knife in her hand proved one thing. Yun Jian was the one who killed the thugs on the ground with their throats slit. There were no exceptions. Yu Luo and the rest were cowering in the corner in fear. Although Chu Xiangnan and the rest were standing not far away, they did not have knives in their hands. These thugs were all killed by knives. Apart from Hertz, who was shot in the heart and had his eyeballs blown out, the rest were all killed by knives. Yun Jian took out the butterfly knife again and twirled it with ease. She swore to the crowd that she was the one who killed them. Yun Jian could not be blamed for being so high profile. She was the one who killed these thugs, so naturally she was the one who killed them. Moreover, there were so many witnesses when she killed the thugs just now. Paper could not contain fire. Even if she did not say it herself, the hundreds of people present would not say it. Therefore Yun Jian decided to reveal it herself. Moreover, this matter was not over yet. Don't forget, at the beginning, Hertz had made a call to the headquarters of the Inferno Ring. The call went through. Hertz was probably a low-ranking member in the Inferno Ring, even though he was not on the list. Therefore Yun Jian was sure that the Inferno Ring would send people here to save Hertz and the rest. Hertz and the rest had already been killed by her. The Inferno Ring naturally did not know about this. Most of the people present could not understand the conversation between Hertz and the Inferno Ring's headquarters. Although some people had learned English, the real English they spoke was somewhat different from what the teachers taught them in school. Even if the people present could understand the conversation between Hertz and the Inferno Ring's headquarters, Yun Jian was not afraid. What Yun Jian wanted to do was to wipe out all the people sent by the Inferno Ring to save Hertz. If she wanted to do this, she would definitely cooperate with the police because it would be more convenient to deal with things then. She didn't like troublesome things. Therefore Yun Jian planned to reveal her skills as soon as she appeared. Did you kill him? Officer Bao looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. The words that came out of his mouth were filled with shock and bewilderment. Others might not know, but Officer Bao knew it very well. Officer Bao had personally experienced how difficult it was to pursue Hertz and his gang. Hertz and his group failed to assassinate the deputy mayor of F province and were discovered by the police. After that, Officer Bao led the police to chase after Hertz and barely managed to trap Hertz and his group in the dojo. Zhang He and the others were unharmed. In fact, none of them were injured. On the other hand, Officer Bao had lost many of his brothers. Although Officer Bao's brothers did not die, they were seriously injured in the process of chasing Hertz and the others. Faced with such a powerful criminal, Officer Bao had already decided to appeal to his superiors and request for the advanced special forces to come to his rescue. When Ai Guixuan and Gu Junjian arrived, the advanced special forces were about to arrive as well. Who would have thought that such a powerful criminal would be killed by Yun Jian? He was killed by an underage girl. Why don't you believe me? Yun Jian crossed her arms. She turned to look at Officer Bao and the others with narrowed eyes. Her lackadaisical attitude made everyone's heart skip a beat. Chapter 545. Everyone was stunned when they heard that. Even Yun Jian raised a brow. She turned to see Coach Su slowly making his way over. Coach Su was an instructor at the dojo and the fifth-generation successor of Yongchun Dojo. As for the Yongchun Mansion, it was quite famous in F province. It was a place to teach martial arts and had been located in Province F for hundreds of years. As the owner of the Yongchun Gymnasium, Coach Su, who was also the fifth-generation successor of the Yongchun Gymnasium, was quite famous locally. At least in F province, most people would give him face. Even the police were no exception. Therefore, when Coach Su stood out and spoke to the crowd, who would not believe him? I saw it with my own eyes. Coach Su had already walked in front of Officer Bao. He stared at Officer Bao with his dark eyes and spoke in a firm tone. Officer, I'm the current dojo owner of Yongchun Dojo, Su Mo. She killed these people, I can guarantee that. Coach Su knew that Yun Jian intended to come clean, so he stood out to help her. Officer Bao knew that Instructor Su was the current owner of Yongchun Pavilion, Su Mo, right away. He nodded, not that he did not believe Yun Jian's story. Even the famous dojo owner of Yongchun Dojo stood out for Yun Jian. How could this be fake? So, it's Coach Su from Yongchun Dojo. Nice to meet you. Officer Bao extended his hand to greet Coach Su. Ai Guixuan's face flushed red when he heard Coach Su's words. It was an awkward look. How he had criticized Yun Jian earlier, questioned Yun Jian, and even pointed his gun at Yun Jian, claiming that she was being controlled by the criminals. How awkward was Ai Guixuan's current state. However, no one cared about Ai Guixuan now. Officer Bao evacuated the crowd and cleaned up the scene. He had Coach Su send the students home at the same time. As for the 3 dead youths, Officer Bao felt sorry for them, but there was nothing he could do. He could only send someone to mediate with their family members. After all, the dead could not be brought back to life. No one would have thought that such an unlucky thing would happen. After the students of Yongchun Pavilion were evacuated, only Officer Bao and his colleagues from the police station, as well as the 7 members of Team Monarch, Battling Dragons, Coach Su, Gu Junjian and Ai Guoxuan were left. Except for Coach Su, all the people here were either from the military or the police. Yun Jian then walked in front of Gu Junjian and stopped Gu Junjian. Yun Jian, what's wrong? Gu Junjian was stunned. He had been helping the police clean up the set, but now he was suspicious. This isn't over yet, Yun Jian said. Her tone didn't sound like she was joking. Why aren't you done yet? Yun Jian, do you think you haven't been in the limelight enough? 3 of them are dead. Lil Bin, Lil Wu, Lil Lei and the rest. Yu Luo hated Yun Jian to the core. Seeing how good Yun Jian was at fighting earlier, she was instantly enraged. Now that she had unintentionally overheard Yun Jian's words, Yu Luo even pretended to feel sorry for the 3 youths killed by the criminals to show Yun Jian's viciousness. Actually, Yu Luo only knew their names, but she was trying her best to make it seem like she was grieving for the 3 youths. Chapter 546. However, no one paid any attention to Yu Luo's words. After all, Yun Jian's capability was right in front of them. How could Yu Luo dismiss her with a few words? How could Yun Jian, who could kill the group of criminals just now, be a weakling? Go on. Gu Yunjian's dark eyes stared straight at Yun Jian. When Yun Jian said that the matter was not over yet, he was already looking at Yun Jian with a frown. Since Yun Jian had said so, she must have her reasons for doing so. Gu Yunjian's disregard made Yu Luo hate Yun Jian even more. Yun Jian ignored Yu Luo as well. She looked at Gu Junjian and said, I'm sure the police have guessed that the criminals just now are part of an organization. Ma'am, I've already guessed that. Officer Bao, who was standing at the side, responded to Yun Jian. He then said with a hint of disappointment, it's a pity that we don't know the identities of these criminals. Otherwise, they will be brought to justice for the crime of assassinating the deputy mayor of F province and harming innocent people. TSK, Yu Luo scoffed from the side, but the target of her ridicule was Yun Jian. Yun Jian was doing this on purpose, wasn't she? Should she tell them about this and then pretend to be very powerful when talking to Officer Bao and the others? Did she think that she was some international big shot? Who did she think she was? Just as Yu Luo thought so and scoffed without giving face, Yun Jian's clear voice rang again. The Inferno Ring. What? This time not only Officer Bao, but even Ai Guoxuan cried out in surprise. The Inferno Ring. The criminals just now were from the Inferno Ring? If that was the case, the situation was not looking good. Perhaps normal people did not know what the Inferno Ring was, but as members of the police or military, Officer Bao, Ai Guoxuan, and Gu Junjian knew very well. The Inferno Ring, wasn't that an international assassin organization that was second only to the Inhun organization and the Kosha mercenaries? If a famous assassin organization could be wanted globally and not be annihilated by Interpol, it meant that the organization had the strength to survive in this world. Those small killer organizations, which one of them wasn't annihilated by the Interpol in the end. Their lairs had been destroyed. As for assassin organizations like Inhun Group, Kosha Mercenaries, and Inferno Ring, it was not that Interpol was unwilling to eliminate them, but that they could not. Some police departments even regarded these top-ranked assassin organizations as big tumors that they didn't dare to touch. If he could hide, he would hide. If he could run, he would run. These words had already become the default method of some police departments and international business politicians. But today they heard from Yun Jian that the Inferno Ring was second only to the #1 international assassin organization, Inhun, and the #1 international mercenary organization, Guxia. How could they not be stunned? What Inferno Ring? Yu Luo had never heard of the Inferno Ring. After hearing Yun Jian's words, she snorted and asked curiously. The Inferno Ring is an assassin organization, second only to the #1 international assassin organization, Inhun, and the #1 international mercenary organization, Guxia. An assassin organization that even Interpol can't annihilate isn't something we can afford to offend. Officer Bao frowned, his voice trembling when he realized that he was sweating profusely from fear. Chapter 547. However, Yu Luo's words were ignored once more. Ai Guoxuan had even glared at Yu Luo a few times when she spoke. Why did he have such a dumb subordinate like Yu Luo? She did not even know what was important. How could they talk about the Inferno Ring? Yuluo did not even notice Ai Guixuan's glare at her to shut her mouth. Ai Guixuan was already burning with rage because Yuluo and battling dragons could not defeat Yun Jian. Suppressing the urge to slap Yuluo, he retracted his glaring gaze. What's going on? Tell us in detail, Yun Jian. Gu Junjian was much calmer than Ai Guixuan and Officer Bao. Ai Guixuan's shock and fear when he heard Yun Jian say that the men in black led by Hertz were from Inferno Ring, especially when he was shocked. In comparison, Gu Junjian was much calmer. These men are from the Inferno Ring. Yun Jian spoke. Under everyone's gaze, she walked toward the corpses of the men in black without fear. At this time, the police station had already sent people to clean up the bodies of these black-clothed men, but at this time, the bodies of these black-clothed men had not been cleaned up yet. They were still lying on the ground where they had died. Yun Jian went over and grabbed the butterfly knife with a flip of her hand, holding it in her hand. She used the butterfly knife to lift up the sleeve of Harley's corpse and saw a golden rose branded on the back of his hand that was wrapped in the black shirt. The sparkling rose was eye-catching, but it also darkened the faces of Gu Junjian and the others. This. Gu Junjian's previous calmness was replaced by shock and horror. This is the Inferno Ring symbol. Anyone from the Inferno Ring will be branded with this symbol. After Yun Jian unfolded the golden rose on the back of Heyi's hand, she stood up and wiped the butterfly knife again with a tissue before keeping it in her pocket, talking as she walked. This isn't a secret. You'll find out if you don't believe me. Yun Jian tucked her hands into her pockets and looked at Officer Bao and the others with narrowed eyes. Her last sentence was meant for Officer Bao and the others. Yun Jian knew that Gu Junjian had to believe her words. Gu Junjian stepped forward with a frown and added, "That's indeed the Inferno Ring symbol. I saw this symbol during a mission 10 years ago." Gu Junjian's words made Officer Bao and the others shudder. They were really from the Inferno Ring. Yun Jian was not lying. Then what should we do? Officer asked with a tremble in his voice, frightened. As police officers or special forces, they had all heard of the Inferno Ring's prestige. It was an organization that would do anything to achieve their goals. An assassin's secret agents and assassins. If they were to be retaliated against, wouldn't they be dead meat? We are soldiers. Our people from Country Z were killed by them. Are we going to step back because we are afraid of them? Gu Junjian said with a frown. Gu Junjian had mixed feelings when the 3 innocent youths were killed by Hertz's group. Now that he heard Officer Bao and the others saying that they wanted to stay out of it because they were afraid of the Inferno Ring, Gu Junjian was enraged. Chapter 548. Destroy them. Yun Jian's words stirred fear in the crowd once more. Destroy who? Destroy Inferno Ring? Are you asking us to go against Inferno Ring? Before Gu Junjian could reply, Ai Guixuan had already hollered with a slight tremor in his high-pitched voice. Inferno Ring? That's an international assassin organization. Even Interpol can't do anything to them. You want our Province F's military to go against them so that you can reap the benefits? Gu Junjian, keep your men in check. I only have one thing to say, our Province F's military won't interfere in this. Ai Guixuan's voice shifted from Yun Jian to Gu Junjian like a bullet, his words blasting out. Ai Guixuan was obviously pushing the blame for Yun Jian's words onto Gu Junjian, assuming that Gu Junjian had instigated Yun Jian to say those words. The truth was that this had happened in Province F and the Province F's military was under Ai Guixuan's command. If they were to go against Inferno Ring, the Province F's military would definitely go downhill. From the looks of it, Gu Junjian, as the officer of Zhe Province's advanced special forces, had no reason to interfere. Ai Guixuan even thought that Gu Junjian wanted his military to go against Inferno Ring. By then, Gu Junjian would be able to reap the benefits from the loss of many of his men, making Zhe Province's military stronger than his Province F's. If that was the case, wouldn't Gu Junjian be the one to be praised by Officer Yuan? Ai Guixuan, can you be any more shameless? Gu Junjian was so angry that he pointed at Ai Guixuan's head and roared. Trying to calm himself down, Gu Junjian pointed at Ai Guixuan and spoke in the calmest tone that could explode at any moment. Let's put our personal grudges aside for now, alright? You're F Province's advanced special forces officer after all, how could you think like that? I, Gu Junjian, swear that everything I do is for the good of the people. Why did we join the army? Wasn't it all for the sake of the country's stability and for the people to live and work in peace? Shouldn't we join hands to drive those criminals out of our country? Wake up. Ai Guixuan, have you forgotten why we joined the military in the first place? Now, the people we want to protect have been killed. They were only in their teens. A teenager was killed by these criminals just like that, and you still want to run away from it? Are we going to let those lawbreakers bully and humiliate us? Gu Junjian can't do it. Gu Junjian said all this in one breath, and by the end of it he was already furious. Guixuan, who was being scolded by Gu Junjian, was deep in thought for 2 seconds. While Guixuan was deep in thought, Yunjian was already standing in front of the group. She looked at the group with a slight smirk before looking at Guixuan. Following closely behind Gu Junjian, she said to Guixuan, "You can choose to escape, but I can also tell you that the Inferno Ring won't do anything when their men are killed in F Province. The Inferno Ring will be here soon. Of course, you can choose to retreat, but don't blame me for not reminding you that even if you don't destroy them, they'll destroy you." The Inferno Ring was an organization that would seek revenge. If their men were killed outside, the organization would definitely send people to assassinate them. Yunjian had killed Hertz and his men, and the truth would come out sooner or later. So many people had seen her kill Hertz and his men, the Inferno Ring would definitely come knocking. By then, even Guixuan and his men would not be able to escape. What do you want then? After a moment of silence, Guixuan finally gritted his teeth and put aside his grudge with Gu Junjian to ask Yunjian. Chapter 549. Eradicate the Inferno Ring completely. Make it a thing of the past. It was in line with Yunjian's character to be able to spout such arrogant words. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of air. She was arrogant, but was it really possible for them to go against the Inferno Ring with all their forces combined? Was it even possible? It's not that we don't want to eliminate the Inferno Ring, but we can't fight them at all. Officer Bao said with a hint of frustration, picking up on what everyone else wanted to say. Now that they had offended the Inferno Ring, no one could escape. The only thing they could do now was to go head-to-head with the Inferno Ring. However, could they really win if they went head-to-head with the Inferno Ring? The Inferno Ring was an existence that even Interpol was no match for. Even Interpol would have to think twice before making a move against an assassin organization like the Inferno Ring, what more them? Whether it was Officer Bao, Gu Junjian or Guixuan combined, they only had this much power. How could they go head-to-head with the Inferno Ring? I'll ask Officer Yuan for backup from the higher-ups. Gu Junjian pressed his lips together. This was the only solution he could think of. Guixuan did not put up a front anymore. He knew how terrifying the Inferno Ring was. To go head-to-head with the Inferno Ring, everyone had to work together. Even so, we're still at a disadvantage. The Inferno Ring's forces are spread all over the world. Officer Bao said, troubled. Officer Bao's position in Province F was not particularly low, so he had the right to speak. Chu Ning and the others from Team Monarch, as well as Yu Luo and the others from Battling Dragons, could only watch. However, Coach Su had nothing to do with these things. What if the Kosha mercenaries are added to the mix? The female voice that came out of nowhere shocked the officers and officers present. What? Officer Bao had yet to recover from his shock when he heard Yunjian's words. He looked at Yunjian in disbelief, his voice trembling. Kosha mercenaries? Wasn't that Gu Sha, the #1 mercenary group alongside the #1 assassin organization, and Hun? How could you know the Kosha mercenaries? Guixuan's legs almost gave out from the shock. At this moment, even Yu Luo, who was standing to the side, felt her heart tremble violently. Her intuition told her that Yunjian was becoming more and more mysterious. If the people present did not know about the Inferno Ring, then perhaps there was a reason. After all, although the Inferno Ring was powerful, it was not a legendary existence. However, the Kosha mercenaries were different. The Kosha mercenaries were on par with the Hun organization. Internationally, it was an existence that struck fear into the hearts of major businessmen and politicians. It could be said that if Interpol had any chance of wiping out the Inferno Ring, it would have been impossible. Then it would be impossible to eliminate the Kosha mercenaries or the Hun organization. There was no possibility of that happening. You don't believe me? Yunjian raised her eyebrows and said indifferently. So what if you know the Kosha mercenaries? That was the #1 mercenary group in the world. Do you think they'd help you? Moreover, if we were to go against the Inferno Ring, we wouldn't be able to go against them with just the help of some of the Kosha mercenaries, Guixuan said. Yunjian frowned slightly, then raised a brow and said, what if we add the Hun organization to the mix? She had to wipe out the Inferno Ring this time. Chapter 550. Yunjian lowered her eyelids, giving silent consent to everyone's doubts. She could not wait any longer. She had to annihilate the Inferno Ring this time. Xiao Zhu had died tragically in the hands of the Inferno Ring in her past life. Wolf, who had killed Xiao Zhu, was a member of the Inferno Ring. This was the truth Yun Jian had found out after a thorough investigation. As long as the Inferno Ring remained unpunished, Yun Jian would not be able to rest in peace. She wanted the Inferno Ring to pay the price. Destroy. Let the Inferno Ring have a taste of slaying God's wrath. Anyone who dared to provoke slaying God would have to suffer her wrath. As for why she wanted to join forces with Gu Junjian and Ai Guixuan's military forces, it was not without reason. Country Z had a large population and there were many soldiers in both provinces. Their combined strength was rather formidable. Yun Jian knew that her Kosha mercenaries could not send all their men to annihilate the Inferno Ring. After all, the Kosha mercenaries had just annihilated the old men not too long ago. Now that the mercenary group had suffered heavy losses, they needed time to recuperate. If it were not for Gu Junjian and Ai Guixuan's help, Yun Jian would not have taken action to annihilate the Inferno Ring. After all, the Inferno Ring was an assassin organization. The Kosha mercenaries who had suffered heavy losses were far from enough to annihilate them. Ai Guixuan and Gu Yunjian's military forces were not weak. She could rope them in and contact CE to borrow some men from the Inhun group. Yun Jian was sure that if the Inferno Ring could escape the fate of being annihilated this time, she would pronounce her name Yun Jian upside down. As for Ai Guixuan and Gu Junjian, Yun Jian was not using them. As officers of the Advanced Special Forces, both Ai Guixuan and Gu Junjian yearned for fame. If they could eliminate the Inferno Ring that even Interpol could not, then Ai Guixuan and Gu Yunjian's status would be vastly different. Ai Guixuan and Gu Junjian would not have accepted such an offer if they had no chance of winning back then. Hence, Yun Jian brought up the Kosha mercenaries and Inhun. Of course, even if Yun Jian wanted to borrow people from Inhun, she would never want to lend out most of Inhun's people. Yun Jian knew that as long as she opened her mouth, CE would send all the members of Inhun over, or even send all the members of Inhun to wipe out the Inferno Ring. However, considering the fact that Inhun organization and Kosha mercenaries had mobilized some of their men, it was unlikely that other assassin organizations would take advantage of the situation. To be safe, Yun Jian invited Gu Junjian and Ai Guixuan. Yun Jian, do you really know the people from the Kosha mercenaries and Inhun? You have the ability to invite them over? It was not that Gu Junjian did not believe Yun Jian, but the news was too much for him to accept. They were two of the most renowned organizations in the world. Just one of them alone was comparable to a country's combat power. As for Yun Jian, did she really have the ability to invite people from these two organizations over? Gu Junjian knew very well what kind of person Yun Jian was. Her biological parents were just ordinary workers in Xinjiang town. Whether it was Qin Yiru or Qin Yiru's ex-husband Yun Gang, both of them were ordinary people. As their child, Yun Jian could not possibly be acquainted with two of the most terrifying organizations in the world, could she? I never make promises that I can't do. Yun Jian looked at Gu Junjian, her eyes sparkling. She did not look like she was lying at all. All right, I believe you, Gu Junjian said firmly. Chapter 551. I trust her. Gu Junjian turned to look at Ai Guixuan. He spoke resolutely, his tone brimming with the pride of a soldier. The current Gu Junjian made others see him in a new light. This was a brand new soldier's demeanor. Only a soldier could possess such an awe-inspiring aura. Because she's my subordinate. If I can't even trust my subordinate, who else can I trust? Gu Junjian looked at Ai Guixuan and uttered word by word. Actually, there was a deeper meaning behind Gu Yunjian's words. Back then, before Ai Guixuan had dragged Gu Yunjian's other brother to take the bullet, he had told Gu Junjian that he did not trust the other brother. That was because the other brother was usually petty. Although the three of them were brothers, Ai Guixuan was meticulous. His mind was as delicate as a woman's, always noticing things that were out of the ordinary. Their other brother was also petty. For example, he would turn hostile at once if Ai Guixuan wanted to borrow something from him. Ai Guixuan was very upset about that. Gu Junjian knew that before Ai Guixuan dragged his brother to take the bullet, there was already a crack in their friendship. However, Gu Junjian was furious. He was furious that his brother had insisted on dragging him back to save Ai Guixuan despite his superior's order to retreat, only to be dragged by Ai Guixuan to take a bullet and die on the spot. His brother had gone back for Ai Guixuan, but Ai Guixuan had ungratefully dragged him along to take the bullet. How could Gu Junjian not be enraged? Ever since then, Gu Junjian had not been on Ai Guixuan's side anymore. Since then, Gu Junjian and Ai Guishuan had gone from being best buddies to the current stalemate. All of this started when Ai Guishuan dragged his other good friend to take the bullet for him. To put it bluntly, it was because Ai Guishuan did not trust his brother. Otherwise, Ai Guishuan would not have done such a thing if there was no barrier between them. Therefore, when Gu Junjian said that if he didn't trust his own subordinates, who else could he trust? Part of it was meant for Ai Guishuan. This time, Ai Guishuan surprisingly did not fight with Gu Junjian. Alright, then you can trust me. In any case, the people in my army will not take this risk. Ai Guishuan, who had been swayed by her words earlier, scoffed coldly and rejected her again. Don't help if you don't want to. Goodbye. Yun Jian glared at Ai Guishuan coldly. Actually, there was not much difference between having Ai Guishuan's help or not. The Inhun organization and her kosher mercenaries were enough to suppress the Inferno Ring. However, Yun Jian's invitation to Gu Junjian and Ai Guishuan was well thought out. Ai Guishuan left in a huff after being angered by Yun Jian. Before he left, Ai Guishuan called for Yu Luo and the rest to leave together. Before he stepped out of the semicircular door, he turned to look at Yun Jian and spoke to her with his nose up in the air. I'd like to see how you're going to get the kosher mercenaries and Inhun to help you. I'll be waiting to see. As he spoke, Ai Guishuan pointed at his eyes and left with Yu Luo and the rest in a huff. Chapter 552. Just open your eyes wide and watch, Yun Jian said with her eyes lowered, annoyed by Yu Luo's words. Yun Jian. Yu Luo thought that Yun Jian would not reply to her, but Yun Jian's first words were merciless mockery. She was enraged by Yun Jian's words. Just as she was about to retort Yun Jian, she saw that Yun Jian had a butterfly knife in her hand. She was toying with it, swinging it up and down. Yu Luo gulped. She had not forgotten how Yun Jian had stabbed Hertz's eyeballs with this butterfly knife. She also could not forget how Jay and his men in black were killed by Yun Jian. Yun Jian's bizarre moves were so natural that one would shudder at the mere thought of it, let alone the way Yun Jian was swinging the butterfly knife in her hand. Yun Jian was swinging the butterfly knife casually in front of Yu Luo, even looking at her from the corner of her eyes. The scene sent chills down Yu Luo's spine. Officer Ai, let's go. Yu Luo was so frightened that she quickly ran out. Her laughable look made everyone present feel that she was being ridiculed. Where had the awe-inspiring Miss Yu gone? Right now, Yu Luo was like a little mouse that was running for its life. She did not even greet her uncle, Coach Su, when she left. Coach Su could only sigh with his head hung low. This was also one of the reasons he did not think highly of his niece. She was too arrogant, too ostentatious and too selfish. After Ai Guishuan and Yu Luo left, the world seemed to have quieted down. I can also help. Just as Yun Jian had decided to discuss the next step with Gu Junjian, Officer Bao suddenly spoke up from the side. Unknowingly, Yun Jian had taken control of the situation. My position isn't high, but as long as it's within F Province's jurisdiction, I can still do my part. Officer Bao gritted his teeth, determined to do something big. Thank you. Yun Jian looked up at Officer Bao and smiled. For some reason, Officer Bao was pleasantly surprised by Yun Jian's sudden gratitude. You're welcome. Officer Bao replied immediately. I'm alright, I'm going to arrange the next step. Yun Jian had already thought through the entire incident and her subsequent plans in such a short amount of time. Yun Jian had Officer Bao call most of the police out, leaving only a few trustworthy ones behind. Coach Su did not leave as well. It was only then that Yun Jian began to explain her next step. Hertz asked for help from the Inferno Ring before he died, saying that they're trapped in the dojo. So, Officer Bao, what you're going to do next is to make everyone who knows about what happened today keep their mouths shut. In that case, the Inferno Ring won't know what happened here, nor will they know that Hertz and his men are dead. Officer Bao, continue to surround the Martial Club with your men. Just pretend that Hertz and his men aren't dead yet. I'll get Gu Sha's men to assist you right away. No matter how many reinforcements the Inferno Ring sends or when they arrive, capture them all. Inform me immediately after you've captured them. Officer Gu, you'll bring your men with you. Once the Inferno Ring's men are captured, you'll follow me to meet up with the Kosha mercenaries and Inhun. We'll charge straight into the Inferno Ring's lair and catch them off guard. As for the Kosha mercenaries and Inhun, I'll arrange for them to come to the rescue. Officer Bao led a group of police officers to pretend that Hertz and his men weren't dead and continue to surround the dojo, waiting for the Inferno Ring to walk right into their trap. Once the Inferno Ring's reinforcements arrived, Yun Jian would send the Kosha mercenaries to capture all of them on the spot. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.